Hello everybody and welcome to another episode. For people that have watched previous episodes of mine, they will be familiar with this car, my 1964 standard Beetle. It has a roll cage. I built an engine for it. It's not super big or fast engine, just a 1641 is it? And twin cadron carbs and that kind of thing. In previous videos I had some ignition problems that still are kind of plaguing it a little bit, so there's a few bits I want to do to this before the winter comes, before it goes into storage, so I shall just talk you through bits and pieces. So I actually just made a start, and one of the things, pretty simple, had a slow puncher, so I'm just going to take the tyre off and check the tyre and maybe put an inner tube in it if it hasn't got an inner tube. Another thing I would like to do, you see it has this roll cage that goes all the way to the front beam, connects to the front beam. It goes under the dash, over the roof like this, and a crossover bar with the two struts. But the only thing is with it is because I'm tall, my seat touches on this bar here, and it basically like twists the seat when I sit in it. I do actually want to change these seats to like classic race seats, because these are the original standard seats and they're plastic and they are super slippery, so whenever I go around a corner I'm like hanging on to the steering wheel. So these will go, but I think I'm going to remove this bar that ties into the tunnel here. So I'm going to chop that off to give me a bit more room for my seat, and then I can still use this for the harnesses if I go that way, because at the moment I don't actually have any belts. So although it has a cage, I think the cage would probably kill me if I had an accident, because I'd just smash my head on it. So that's another thing I want to tend to. The other thing is this 1, 2, 3 ignition that I've been, well, I'm assuming that it is this, and I've tried multiple things to try and set it up. And in the previous video when I went to pick this car up from Yanni's, it was really badly popping and banging, and we advanced the timing, ran really nice, but it was lacking a bit of power. It was a bit lazy basically. So today I had a little fiddle with the app and I brought it back a bit, I think, or did I don't remember. I don't remember if I advanced it a bit more or retarded it, but then it seemed to come back to life. But what I'm going to do, because it could be a carb problem, but I doubt it, but I have basically on the Carman gear engine that I'm building, which has been shoved in the corner because I'm waiting for that tool, I have this 009 distributor, but this also has like an electronic module in, and I've never actually used it. I think I tried it on this car once, but I'm going to pop that in today and have a little bit of a play with it, and maybe run it for a few days just to see if that problem goes away. So that's one thing I want to do, and after, if that clears up and that's sorted, the next thing I want to do is I actually need to take the engine out, because I don't know if you can see, there's actually oil leaking. Now I've already taken this engine out and I changed the seals on the oil cooler, which sits up here in the fan shroud. I actually changed the oil cooler as well because it was an old one, and I changed the seals. And because this is a later doghouse fan, which I'll go into more detail when I take this apart, in the earlier ones had 2 seals, but this actually has 4 seals, so double the amount that can leak. But I put new seals in, new cooler, and it does really look like it's coming from there because it's leaking on the top and running down the side here. So I'm going to take this engine out and run it on the table, clean it up, run it on the table, and find out exactly where it's coming from and fix it. I think, and I want to put the older lights back on, because I put these on just to get it through the inspection. But I want to put the older style back on, which it should have these on a 64, but the older ones look a lot cooler. So I want to put those on as well. And I think, oh, that's the other thing, is I think that maybe this side sits slightly lower than the other side, so I'm going to make some measurements and measure the angle. If I take this off, I'm going to measure the angle and make sure that they're both right, because I think this side is slightly a little bit lower and the other side is at perfect height. So everything else works pretty perfect. So let's crack on with the tyre. Okay, so this tyre, when it was in storage, it went flat, and we put some air in it for me to get home, and after a couple of days it'd gone flat again, and I was hoping that it would just like reseal itself, but I don't know if it has a inner tube in it or not. I don't think it has. So I'm going to take the tyre off, check the tyre that there's no nails or anything in it, and it could be that this rim might be a little bit rusty on the inside, which is stopping it from sealing properly. It could be even a faulty valve. I checked that the valve on the inside is tight. These unscrew up in there, that was tight, but yeah, I don't know why it's leaking, but it is. So if it doesn't have an inner tube in, I'm going to put one in. Okay, so first of all you take all the air out, and to do that you take the valve out. So you have this special little tool, and you have to make sure that it doesn't fly across the workshop. So you just take the valve out. Okay, when all the air is out, you have to break basically on a tubeless wheel there's a ridge on the inside of the rim, and you have to unlock like the tyre from that ridge. So you basically use this clamp thing, and there you go. So it just pops off. Yeah, this is a tubeless rim. So that's popped off. Do the same the other side. Okay, there it is. Done. Okay, then you lift it up to here, and then you have these jaws that go in and out, and it grabs onto it grabs the rim. So you make sure that your tyre is not in that locking bead on the rim, and then you get your lever, and then you bring this thing down. That basically just goes against the rim, and then you lock it. I can show you here, like that. It has like a plastic piece on it, and then you basically hook the tyre over like that, and then you rotate with this pedal. You rotate it like that, and it pulls the tyre off. So then you have to do the same for the other bead. So you lift it up. And that's it. So you can see that it didn't have an inner tube. This is a little bit rusty, which doesn't help with it sealing, so it could be leaking from there. This valve looks new, so I think I probably would have put that in when I put the tyre on, so I don't, it could be obviously, but maybe not. But I think it's probably because this rim is a little bit rusty. I'm just going to give it a clean up with a wire brush. Okay, so ideally these should be blasted because you can feel they're quite rough. So I'm going to put a tube in here. Also, you should check on the inside of the tyre if you can feel any nails poking through. Be careful you don't cut your fingers. Can't feel anything. Feels good. And obviously visual check on the outside. Any damage on the sidewall, if there's any splits in the sidewall. If you have a hole from a nail or stone or something like that on the tread, you can repair it. But if you have any damage on this sidewall, this is a lot softer. You can't repair it if it's on the sidewall. So it looks okay. They're a bit worn, these tyres, and they're a bit old, but okay. So next thing I have to do is remove this valve, because on the inner tube the valve is part of the whole thing, so you don't need this. Okay, you can see better that there's a little bit of surface rust. It's not anything too bad, but it's a little bit rough. That could be the cause for it not sealing. So here's your valve. This is the type of valve you use if you're not using a tube. So I'm going to cut this like that. And then you just basically pull that. Okay, so we put the rim back on there and we push this one here, and that, you can see, grabs onto the rim. Now then we use this paste. It's like a lubricant basically that helps the tyre slip onto the rim. So you just rotate the machine like this and you paint this stuff on like that. Obviously to the top and the bottom. And then you also apply it to the tyre. Like that. And then the other side. And you bring this back onto the rim and lock it. And then you basically rotate it and it pushes the tyre back on like that. Okay. Now, because we're running the inner tube, we move that back out of the way. And then we get our inner tube. So you make sure it's clean. Obviously it's a bit dusty, but that's fine. And no cracks or splits. And it also states on the side of the inner tube for which size tyre you're using. So this is actually for a 185 and a 195, and I'm running a 6.5, so it should be fine still, because it's not going to be over stretching, it's actually going to be under stretching a little bit. The important thing when you're putting a tube in is the way that the inner tube lies. So when you have it this way round, you can see that the valve is sticking up nicely like that. So that's the way you want it, because when you put it into your rim, that needs to be poking up. Otherwise, when you try to inflate it, that tries to want to go back inside. So this is the hard bit, is stuffing this thing in here. Like that. And then you have to get the valve and poke it through the hole there and pull it through. Okay? So this is the way I do it. I always then get, I don't know how the professionals do it, but I then get this tool, which is actually for pulling the new valves through for tubeless tyres. Like, so you get a new valve like this, you put it through the hole, put that on the end, and then you pull this through. I always put this on here to stop the valve going back inside and losing it. So once you've done that, you just put that lip over like that, bring this back, so that goes underneath, back goes over the top, and then you rotate it around. Now when you're doing this, the important thing is that the bottom of the tyre isn't sitting in that lock-in ring, because it will make this too tight and it will actually sometimes tear. So if you make sure that that's not located, it will go on. Bam! Like that. And then I always give it a wiggle like this to get the valve lining straight up. And then we just need to put some air in there. One really important thing is when you start to put air in here, make sure that the inner tube isn't trapped between the tyre and the wheel itself, because when you try to inflate it, obviously it will pinch it and it can tear the inner tube, and you don't want that. So I've just checked top and bottom, and I can't feel that it's good. That's lined up. I can now remove this. Now you can put the valve in there at this stage, but I often leave it out because you get a more flow of air in there. And then there's a pump on the side here. Put the air in. Now if you can hear air leaking out, that's actually air that's trapped between the tyre and the inner tube. So you think it's actually leaking, but it's not. It's just the air escaping. Okay, so you can see that the tyre has popped on nicely to the rim, and you can see that your valve is nice and straight. Okay, so I'm basically going to take this off, and all the air is going to escape. And I'll get my new valve, put it in there like that, tighten it up. There we go, just nip it. And then put in how much air you need. I don't remember what it should be, but let's leave it at 25. Put the dust cap on. Release it. Done. Okay, so normally what you do after you put the tyre on is you balance the wheel. So this machine, it spins up the wheel and then it tells you which side and where on the wheel to put a certain amount of weight. They all come in different sizes. This is 25, I think. But on these Volkswagen rims, I never balance them, and I've not really had a problem. So I'm not going to. Plus, we don't have the adapter to fit these wide 5. So that's another reason why I'm not going to balance it. But I've never really had a problem with these Volkswagen wheels. So let's stick it on the car. Thanks so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like what you see, and leave a comment. There's more stuff coming soon. Okay, thank you.